Hey guys, welcome to another interview with sharing a joint with Matt. Today I'm talking to a couple of T-Rex Rhapsody. How are you guys?
Good man.
Good,
Thanks for
good.
having us, Matt.
Excellent. Thank you
How
for
are you?
coming on. Excellent. Excellent. Well, yeah, getting there. Yeah, great. I've got to ask the name. Who thought of the name and why?
Uh, we stole it from a Australian museum, National Geographic exhibition. So myself and former guitarist were at there was a woolly mammoth exhibition going on. It was traveling from different museums, and we got upstairs, and in there they've got this T-Rex autopsy, and we'd been floating around different names for ages, and I had all these pretentious names that nobody can pronounce or remember, and he just turned to me and said, "T-Rex autopsy, dude," and I went, I like it. It's absurd. It's not my first choice. And then we put it to a vote within all the members of the band. They went, "That's the one." I was like, "All right, I lose. You guys win. This is a better name." So yeah, that's the name.
Yeah, we were
Pure
we were
theft.
previously called Panopticon. Also cute Staffy. I've got two Staffies myself. Um,
It's a pug. It's a
oh, it's a pug.
lovely
Oh, on
pug.
the small little screen, it looked like a Staffy. Hello, little guy. Oh well, that's foot and mouth. What a cute little guy.
Yeah, he's got the funniest little bottom teeth. It's
Oh,
like
he's
he's
got the
got him upside
undercut. Let's
down.
go. The underbite is the
Yeah,
beautiful part of pugs. But yeah, we were
yeah, he's
previously
gorgeous.
previously called Panopticon, and yeah, we were in like JB Hi-Fi. I think I was in JB Hi-Fi, and I was like, Craig, there's another band called this. So yeah, Craig and Tony, our previous guitarist, had gone to that expo and come back with it, and then yeah, we had like a list of 50 something names, and so we put it to five five names that we would want to go with, and Craig was a little bit hesitant on it to start with, and then I pulled there's bands called AC/DC and Metallica, but they're memorable names. Why not go with an absurd name? And Craig's a big avid lover of dinosaurs, and I loved dinosaurs
Fucking
as a
oath.
kid, so it was like, yeah, it just made sense.
But names are like that, aren't they? Like
Mm.
Pearl Jam. Like if you had someone said, "Hey, I'm going to call my band Pearl Jam," you go, "What the fuck does that mean?" Like
Yeah,
Exactly.
it doesn't even make sense.
It's
But
it's
yeah,
paid
yeah,
dividends.
excellent.
It's paid dividends though. We just played a bunch of shows up in Queensland. Shout out to Snake Mountain for bringing us up there.
Oh, sorry to hear.
Um, and
There's
the
another absurd name from a
yeah,
cartoon, right?
Snake Mountain. Yeah, great
I
name
mean, it's
though.
important to have a name that sits in your brain and you can remember. Whereas, literally, yeah, all the names that I'd come up with or presented to the fellas were obscure shit that everybody's like, "What's that mean?" I'm like, "Well, look it up." Or I'd be
Yeah,
like, it
We
has this really cool concept. Stuff like a Dyson sphere or something like that. Look up that. It's a really cool
for
science fiction
show.
concept. But anyway, yeah, just wanker shit. So I was like, yeah, let's go for the thing that people can remember. That's, I guess, you know. And maybe we've also got glam rock leanings of T Rex and then, autopsy death metal shit. I don't know. I'm talking shit now.
that's
I
what it's
played.
all about.
Hey,
Talking shit.
paid
Yeah.
dividends when we got up to Queensland. We had people that wanted to come and watch us just based on the name, which is awesome. That's a few years in the making, but it's where people are then going, oh, let's go check out this band that has this absurd name. So yeah, it's good.
Yeah, no, it's great. So you're metal. You lean to the metal side of the music spectrum, yeah?
I,
Yeah, so
yeah, I'd say so. I mean, go on.
yeah, progressive world metal. So Craig's got an abundance
I
of
hate
Middle
that term.
Eastern instruments and um, really honed in on that sort of area. But then there's this pool. Massive lover of Opeth and Gojira and Mastodon, and love that feel of where you're not really restrained with what you're doing in terms of music. You can go do a blast to the wall thrash metal song, but then pull out something that's a little bit more melodic and stripped back and less distortion. So you know, we dub ourselves as progressive metal or world metal, but we just want to write music and just play whatever the fuck we love. You know, there's stuff that Craig's written and put to the fellas and the boys where we're playing mandolin and you know, a set of percussive instruments that Craig's gone and learnt. Craig, you can talk more to the percussiveness of that.
Yeah. I'd push back on the term world metal, but other people have dubbed us that because I guess, you know, when you add something that's I guess a non-Western influence or obvious influence, then people go, "Oh, it's world music," and I'm like, "Yeah, all right, fuck that term." But whatever. If it means people can understand what we're doing, then that's fine. I guess both Ross and myself grew up listening to shit like John Williams soundtracks, Indiana Jones, Star Wars soundtracks, and Jeff Wayne's War of the Worlds, which is
Oh,
I don't know whether you
fuck,
know
that
it.
scared me as a kid.
Yeah,
Oh,
and
mate,
that's prog as fuck.
it's one of the best.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah, it's
I
phenomenal.
went and bought the War of the Worlds vinyl the other week because I was like, the soundtrack is fucking phenomenal, you know, and it's so
Iconic,
metal at the same
iconic.
time.
Yeah, it's got banjo in
I
it,
remember
with the Ray Guns theme and all that, like
oh,
Richard Burton's
it's,
baritone voice, amazing.
yeah, yeah, no, it is.
And then I guess
It
as
was
well,
one
like
of the
growing up
greatest
listening to a
bands.
lot of I got like I guess I was listening to contemporary music as a young kid, but I hadn't latched my identity onto it yet. So a lot of the music that I grew up listening to was boomer music, like listening to Creedence Clearwater Revival and Led Zeppelin and The Doors, little bits of Black Sabbath, Jimi Hendrix. And then one day playing Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2, discovered Rage Against the Machine. I was like, oh, this is like modern Jimi Hendrix. And I guess then I latched my identity to that. And then I guess you could say the rest is
Talk
history of.
about Rage Against the Machine. Rage Against the Machine. You put this on YouTube one time. It's their first ever appearance. They're playing for about 20 people
Yep.
in this little picnic fucking thing, and their intro is the start of their hit song, obviously, "Killing in the Name of," and then it's just and then it starts into a different song. Like "Killing in the Name of" was not actually a song. I googled it and everything, and I was like, yeah, it was just an intro to another song, and
Yeah.
yeah,
And then
look
it
it up on
evolved.
YouTube.
Actually,
I'll check that out.
I actually was fortunate enough to meet Tom Morello a few years back when Prophets of Rage played at Download Festival. I was in Akadaka Lane at Cherry Bar, and announcement comes over the PA, and I look up, and Tom Morello's DJing a set at this small little bar in Melbourne. Yeah, it was like a nice like full circle moment. Got to get a picture with him as well, and then went out the back, and he came out with his entourage, and I was sitting in the same location, so we got to actually talk about music, which was awesome, and great dude. But yeah, same with what Craig was a major influence for myself, where growing up there's 7.5 years between us, so you can imagine a 15-16 year old kid that's discovering all these different types of metal, and I'm like 9 years old listening to Metallica, onto Limp Bizkit, onto then Slayer, and then
Mr. Bungle.
Driving Force, where when I remember hitting high school and Craig was like, do you want to be a better guitarist, and sitting me in front of his computer and learning Fear Factory and learning Devil Driver, and these bands that and then a force full of like Lamb of God. Lamb of God was like one of the biggest influences for myself. Notably though, when he put me onto Pantera and listening to Dimebag Darrell, it was like a full force of just brutal sort of metal, which was great. Pulling away from Creedence Clearwater Revival, Craig would remember that I had heard it through the grapevine on my little tape recorder on repeat, along with
played on repeat for about an hour straight, and like air guitar, or he had this toy guitar thing, and I was like, it's a great song. It's got a great bass line. There's more songs. Anyway.
Ever thought of covering it? Have you ever thought of covering it?
I have actually.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. I'd want to play bass.
I'd love to. I've always wanted to cover shit like Fortunate Son, or their version of what's their version of? Oh, it's a Screaming Jay Hawkins song. Um, I put a spell on you because that's
Yeah,
dark and I mean, I guess given the context of what I was just saying, I mean, I guess I had a musical background you could call that was metal that ain't. You know, again, like Imperial March by John Williams, Darth Vader's theme, all that, like all the heavy Fantasia, watching that as a kid as well. Tchaikovsky, Stravinsky is very Meshuggah, all that sort of shit. So I guess finding then it was very easy for me to then make the connection of finding other music that was metal that wasn't necessarily in the genre section of the metal section of the music store. Um, and then growing up in just I'm deviating and going on a tangent here, but Ross and I both grew up within the Bankstown um, municipality, I guess you could call it, or whatever the fuck, the Bankstown City Council. So we had a lot of still do. There's a lot of Lebanese and other Arab migrants who have moved there. So there was a lot of exposure to then Middle Eastern classical and folk music. And I guess to tie it back in with, I guess, rock and metal, Dick Dale's Mizzaloo, the one that was used in Pulp Fiction, and then that terrible, terrible version that the fuck was that hip hop group that did it? That ha whatever the fuck they called. Pump It, whatever the fuck the name of that group was. That song kind of in my mind, I was like, oh, this Middle Eastern sort of sound, Eastern European, Middle Eastern sort of sound is totally metal as fuck. And I mean,
shit,
I'd,
yeah.
I'd argue that almost every metal band has at least one riff that is using one of those scales or vibes. I mean, Slayer do it from time to time. Metallica's done it. Nearly everybody's touched on it a little bit. I guess it was just, I don't know. When things are ancient and old and exotic and far away, um, they become attractive. So the amount of Lebanese friends that I have that when we started cultivating friendships and playing music together, they keep calling me Odin's son, and they're obsessed with Norse mythology and Vikings and shit. And I'm like, you guys are from the Levant, like that's the birthplace of civilization. Like I was like, and we're both just more interested in what each other's cultural background had to offer or history. But yeah,
The other side of things as
I know.
well, we were fortunate enough to we grew up in a pretty semi-musical environment. Our great grandparents were, I remember, would be playing piano. Our grandmother played piano. Our mum played piano. I don't know if you met him, Craig, but like one of our great uncles played, every single instrument via ear. So there's that musical gene that's kind of just flown through the generations, which is very fortunate. And then as a result, exposure to these different elements of music. I remember as a kid going to a lot of theater. I loved going to theater, seeing I can't believe I'm blanking on it, but like Cats and going to Wicked and Billy Elliot and all of these
That's the
different
one.
sort of
Elton
musical.
John's musical.
Elton John, yeah, Elton John's
That was the
music.
Elton John musical, Billy Elliot, right?
Yeah, that's right.
It was like the campiest thing ever, and you're like, oh, I like
Rocky
this. Me too.
Rocky Horror Show. Those that was one element of just like a lot of musical influence with that theater sort of aspect, which plays tribute to then a lot of our shows where we want to be a force where we're giving a performance. I don't want to just stand there and just play my guitar. I want to make sure that I'm rocking out and I'm moshing and everyone in the crowd's having a good time. But that's one selection of element that we were exposed to, and then a lot of this classical music was always something that we were, part of. Where I was going to, and I remember us going to Tchaikovsky's Rite of Spring in the Domain, or
Stravinsky.
or going to, Peter and the Wolf, where then they would play Mozart's Seventh or whatever was then being played with it, and so there was a lot of that classical element that was brought in, or seeing the Beach Boys with the Sydney at the Opera House with the Sydney Symphony.
Opera House,
um,
yeah.
so those elements are then stuff that we've brought in, and Craig's really honed in on it, where he's upskilled himself with his with technology and being able to utilize other sort of pedals and mellotrons and other elements from then, Opeth, bringing in those sounds and those soundscapes to then craft out a bigger sound for what we have as well. It makes it really exciting. I remember, early on I was like, oh, whatever we can perform live, let's just do that. But then it's always you know, when we get into then the studio and we're writing, it's like I've got this entire like orchestral piece that I've created and I'm gonna put it in here. And I'm like, all right, Craig, no worries. Here's this start of this song that's gonna go for 2 minutes. So there's like we might need to hone it down a little bit. But then when you hear it and you hear it in the context of everything, it's just you know all these elements that we've been exposed to them being brought into our music.
Again, Jeff Wayne's War of the Worlds. I guess, you know, that musical opera sort of thing. The idea of having an electric guitar with then a full ensemble, and I guess as well hearing stuff like Hans Zimmer with his scores and soundtracks where he fuses, you know, guitar-based music, or John Barry even with 007 theme and all that, or Beat Girl, those sort of themes. Guitars like center and foremost, but there's an entire orchestra behind it, or Ennio Morricone, that sort of shit. Anyway, yeah, I'm ranting a bit.
I
With
think
another question.
Tubular Bells,
Yeah,
Tubular
yeah,
Bells.
that's sick.
I think that's got
Like
a
Oldfield,
big take on the metal scene.
definitely. It's creepy as shit. The first time I heard that was
Yeah,
actually in a Happy Hardcore techno remix of it. That was so bizarre. And I was like, oh,
no,
this is from The Exorcist.
yeah. So you just played in Brisbane. Where'd you play it?
So we played up at Moe's Tavern in the Gold Coast, which was awesome.
Great room.
Great room,
Great
great
staff.
sound. Yeah. Like I want to go back there and play there again. I wish we lived more local to it because it's just, yeah, there was a great crowd. Sound was amazing. The venue itself, they were so accommodating and just a really, really good setup. And then the stage was hot as fuck. I was sweating my balls off and sunburnt as well because I fell asleep on the beach after driving the 10-hour drive up there. But it was, yeah, awesome. And so that was on the Friday, Friday last week, Craig, was it? Yep, Friday last week.
And then Saturday was Sunshine Coast at the Precinct, which was originally it's a cocktail bar slash old jazz venue. They've got is it Jeff Martin from the Tea Party performing their solo soon or something, which is pretty cool. That was a cool little room, and people who'd come out to see us and some of the other bands then traveled all the way up as well, which was nice. Sound in that room was a bit here and there, but the guy did the best he could.
Difficult when it's a metal band
people there as
playing in
well.
a small little jazz bar.
So you've got a lot of influences on so many genres. Does that have any stance on your lyrics? Do you have a certain with your lyrics? Is there a theme in the way you write your?
I guess you could
just whenever.
There's been, I guess you could say, there's been some, I guess you could call it like political commentary or socio-political commentary on some stuff. One of our songs, Letters from Damascus, was inspired by the Syrian civil war, I was just deeply passionate about that and thought Bashar al-Assad was a complete piece of shit and he needed to be got rid of. And now that he's been got rid of, I was like, oh, is this worse than what we had before? Because he's terrible, but kind of like the Iranian Revolution as well, where it was like, oh, the Shah was terrible, and then what we got with theocrats in charge, that's more terrifying. Other political commentary, but I mean, Ross in the past has made the point that sometimes I'd get on the mic and I'd say what the song's about. It's like, just play the song and just let people interpret it however they want. I guess there's other themes as well. I do like to delve into ancient history. So inspired by some of that ancient civilizations and singing about stuff like that. But then we also have stupid songs about sandwiches and how it ruins my IBS. So there's no one main theme, I guess you could say. It's just whatever you're inspired by in the moment and you're captivated by, then comes out. And I mean, even then, sometimes lyrically, I just end up writing more nonsense where it's like, okay, these words sound sick together. And if someone asks me, what's this song about? I'm like, I don't fucking know. It's just a bunch of syllables that sound really cool together. And I kind of swing between the pendulum of like, yes, I read books and I'm intellectual and I write shit. And here, have something to think about and dissect, which nobody's really doing probably. and then just, oh yeah, here's fart jokes and shitting on the toilet, the full gamut, I guess, spectrum of
Yeah.
bullshit.
I think it's just to play on what Craig said there. Craig's had a lot of influence and very intelligent in his own right. So he does a lot of research and being able to then craft out just a story for what the song is. There is a common theme that comes through when it comes with the music, and then there's commonality when it comes with a lot of the lyrics for certain songs. But I guess the same as what our music is, where we're not pigeonholing ourselves in terms of just one sort of area and being a one trick pony for that. That comes with them lyrically what we're writing, which is, we can write about zombies. We've got a song called Rivera Romano, and it's just about, zombies and D&D and, pulling from the influences. It's not necessarily the influences, but the things that we love, right? Music's about not non-boundary set when you don't let it to be. If you don't let yourself be pushed into one sort of area, you can craft out anything. So you can go from them being, super serious about a situation, and we've got a song called Refugee, and they're very hard-hitting lyrics, and it when you listen to it and you hear it and you hear what's going through the progression of the song, it's very sad, and it's got a very strong message there. But then when you go listen to Heavy Metal Awesome Sandwich and you've got Craig sounding like he's vomiting on the floor, we can take away from being just serious to then having that joke and having fun, and not have to be that, that serious lyrical band every single, position. And that just allows us just to be open with our creativity at the end of the day. So yeah, I think a lot of influence, and when Craig's worked on a lot of stuff and then reviewing and then coming back and maybe adjusting and readjusting certain areas, it's just allowing for there to be that freedom for us.
Is there a topic that you kind of shy away from, or anything goes
I guess there's always
politically?
Yeah, I mean, there's one thing that, because the thing is, the world, on one hand, I'm very much an influence, again, Rage Against the Machine, and then Sepultura and all that, where A Killer Be Killed were doing it more recently as well, where a political, I guess, observational message of like, hey, here, I can see something, and fix your eyeballs on this and consider it. It can be cringe when then people are just telling people what to necessarily think. And with so much of the other modern world where our devices are just beaming propaganda at us, whether it's right or wrong or good intentioned or bad intentioned whatsoever, it can be, people sometimes want to have escape. And so I'm often constantly evaluating the validity of singing about something that's currently relevant. For example, writing a song about the civil war in Syria, where like it kind of went out of everybody's consciousness and then disappeared, and then Assad fell. It was like, oh, this is now the flavor of the week again. This could have been the time to actually mention that just before we play it, but whatever. So you can sometimes, I mean, I love Dead Kennedys as well, and I guess that sort of satirical type of political commentary can work well as well, because then you don't come across as too much holier than thou. I guess it can be a bit cringe when people are just sitting on a platform pontificating like, you're all shit and I'm amazing. Like if you come across like that, it can alienate people. Whereas a band like, I guess, Mastodon, where they sing about sort of more universal allegorical sort of themes that then people can latch on, it then can have a lasting legacy where it's any time and place you can go, oh, I'm connecting with these human universal themes or whatever it is that they're singing about in a mythological fantasy sort of setting, as opposed to, oh yeah, any sort of song by Dead Kennedys where it's tied to a specific time and place, where
that's where you're pigeonholing yourself
potentially. And again, both are valid, but yeah, if anything, now I'd be again wanting people to just wanting to remind people to like, hey, go outside and go for a walk, and don't assume that everything that's online is actually real.
Well, we live in
I'm not sure.
not power vacuum. We live in a bit of a vacuum of what's right and what's wrong. I myself personally am writing something that's to do with that, where we're swayed by so much online opinion, and it's not always facts, and it's people's opinions, and a lot of that opinion basis is, people that have read something online and it's regurgitated, and there's just so much online regurgitation that doesn't have factual information behind it, and it sucks because people are so they listen to it and they hear it and they believe it without actually going and doing their due diligence to be able to understand if it's true or not, and it sways so many people's opinions, and people are just not, we hard stick onto areas or topics that is the flavor of the month. Something happens, and therefore then people are like, I'm going to gravitate to that because the majority are going to that, and therefore that's the thing to be able to be angry at, or that's the thing to support this week. And then next week passes and no one gives a fuck about it anymore. And it's like it can be a legitimate thing that needs to be focused on and discussed and fleshed out, but then people's attention spans are like, oh, my phone just went and alerted me to this new thing that I have more of an opinion on now. It was trending last week, but now I don't give a fuck anymore.
Yeah.
Because in the past, I had a bit of an obsession of trying it because I saw an absence within the artistic sphere, of, I guess you could say, pro-scientific based views on reality and how to deal with it. And I guess I was trying to like cast seeds of skepticism in people's brains, where it's like, hey, use your critical thinking. We have cognitive biases in our brains that then just naturally lead us towards, you know, wanting to just be right all the time instead of being like, hey, I'm human, I'm flawed, I'm probably wrong 80% of the time until something's corrected or it's pointed out to me. Yeah, probably 95. Um, but I mean, we didn't really answer your question. Is there any political topic that we would or wouldn't discuss? Probably, and then I won't say it. Even now. um, I guess, there's things about, I guess, in this, people often want to just lump you in a specific category, and then it's us versus them, as opposed to a nuanced perspective that you may have on a position. And again, my opinions will change on certain topics as new information comes to me. So,
Yep.
yeah, I don't know. Whatever. Just like a lot of art, I'll just wrap it up by saying a lot of art, I suspect, not always, is literally a creator being inspired by something and then pointing at it and trying to have other audience members look at me. It's just like, I think this is fucking cool and interesting. It may even be disgusting and horrible, but it's fascinating. Why don't you look at it too? And maybe you'll enjoy it as much as I do, or just, maybe you'll shrug your shoulders and go, I don't get why this guy gives a fuck about that. So,
yeah. I think another.
Yeah, people don't have their own mindset anymore. I don't think. I think that a lot of the time, everyone, like, now we're in a woke situation. I think a lot of people now won't have their own opinions because of the fear of being shut down or being
social backlash.
Fuck you. Yeah. Like
social ostracization.
And there's a lot of, I won't delve into any topic, and I'll keep it broad, but there's so much that I see sometimes online, and it's like, and like you touched on it for a moment there. There's the fear of the backlash of what can occur if you make an opinion or you say something to it. So I don't think it's necessary that we steer away from a topic or anything like that. I think it's more so if it makes sense to talk about and it makes sense to sing about at the same time, or growl about, however we want to interpret it. If it resonates and it has that sort of like personal, connection with, Craig's, touching on that point. There's a lot of stuff that we've sung about. Waves, one of our songs that's going to come out on our album, it's like something that's dear to Craig, not necessarily a connection for me, but when he wrote it and then we rewrote that track, it's something that Craig's passionate about. So it's, I think,
when I appropriated the lyrics from Carl Sagan's Demon Haunted World, I don't know whether you know Carl Sagan. He was a science educator. It's kind of like the Neil deGrasse Tyson of his day. Very, very inspiring humanist. Flawed human, like all of us. But yeah, reading that, I was like, oh my God, this is perfect for the vibe that I was feeling at the time, and then just took some of the sentences and words and rearranged them into a song. But yeah, that was something I was passionate about. Ross would just be, who the fuck's Carl Sagan?
Yeah, at the time I
Yeah.
was.
He's the
And
goat.
years later, I was like, all right, yeah, I could see that. And yeah, I think it just really hones in though on not necessarily avoiding a topic, but whether or not there's a connection for it. There's no point in writing about something that doesn't mean anything to us necessarily, you know. Not Road to Serfdom, but Romero Romano is like D&D. We grew up as nerds, loving Star Wars and Lord of the Rings and this world of goblins and archers and being able to just use your imagination. So maybe that's another song we go delve into, Craig. Maybe we go do some more world building of our own from our D&D
Yeah, man.
campaigns.
Yeah.
I just think it's.
Yeah.
I think
I
it's.
just I
Go.
I was just going to say the cancel
Okay.
culture is universal. You know, whether it's the ultra woke left or ultra conservatives, if you say or stray too much from what the group think can be, then people will often want to just cancel you. And it's in some ways, I feel like art is suffering because then people are reticent to want to be daring. And, the whole maybe it's tried and tested and trite now, but the whole shock rock thing, back in the day, I mean, you can still do it. It's not that you can't do it, but yeah, I think you know what I'm saying, where you'd have artists would just say controversial shit to get a rise. It's like, well, half of what you're doing with performance and or creating something is to get a reaction.
Mm.
And being controversial, whereas now I could be wrong, but it seems like certain audiences or demographics before that were could go, oh yeah, this is just art. Clearly, the artist doesn't believe the things that they're spewing forth with their mouth, or their pen or whatever. And oh wow, they're saying the controversial thing. Oh, I want to buy it. That's interesting and salacious or whatever. Now it seems, I could be wrong, but it seems as though people would be more likely to go, oh, we shouldn't be saying that. So I'm not going to support your record or what. You know what I mean? Like I could be wrong, but maybe I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. But yeah,
The other
whenever the
problem,
pendulum swings too far one way, there's a backlash usually.
On that subject, I had an interview a couple of years back. That it was a band. I'm not going to mention their name, and we started the interview, and I was wearing a Charles Manson shirt,
Yep.
and the band pulled out straight away. Said, "Sorry, we can't."
Oh, because the association meant that they
Yeah,
endorsed him.
I'm a,
Not
Ch-
necessarily.
I, I'm a Manson sympathizer. I think he was innocent and all that sort of shit, but that's another story. But I just thought, like, you're a punk band, you sing about this, and this,
Yep.
yet when there's something that's not not even half the population's
Yeah.
thing, it like you pull out straight away, and I was like shocked. I think,
Yeah. That's it's a bit of an extreme reaction because
it was.
yeah, I don't
I
know.
was dumbfounded. I was dumbfounded. And the guy had
I
a
think
GG
that's
Allen suit on. He had
I
a
think that's like
GG Allen suit on.
natural reaction a lot of times now is that people that disagree with something automatically sort of just disengage. They go, "Oh, I don't agree with that," rather than having a conversation. I
Hmm.
mean, whether it's political or it's religious, right? Some of the best conversations that I've ever had were with people that have different opinion, because
Hmm.
as when you have a conversation, and that's what it is. It's a conversation about what someone believes in. There's so much that you can learn from it. There's so much that you can draw from, and rather than having that automatic disdain towards something and closing yourself off from the learning capability of something, there's things you can draw from it. You ask the question, why do you believe in that, or why is your opinion that. A
Yes.
conversation is so simple. A conversation is a question and answer, or a response and a statement, and that leads into then another question. And when you have a good conversation that has that call and response from a question and answer, there's so much that you can learn from it. So many religious conversations that I've had where I've learned so much from what someone believes in, or why they've gone down this certain route. Or political discussions of like things that I wasn't aware of, that I person, we all do it. We have a automatic disdain towards something, but then have been able to then learn from that and be able to have a different opinion towards it. I think people are so closed off automatically that as soon as they see something that they don't like, they steer away from it. And that's the problem that ties into, you know, cancel culture right now, or like what you're saying with the woke agenda, that if you have a difference of opinion, that you could potentially cast yourself away, or no longer be a viable option of listening party because of what your chosen view is, rather than just having the discussion and being able to be kind to one another to be able to understand what's happening.
Like you're the 77th interview. I'm not saying anything about any of the other interviews at all, but like they've all been fun and fucking. I've had brown eyes, dick pics, fucking everything showing at me. It's like, these cunts are fucking hilarious. But it's like I'm talking to a professor at a fucking university, and I'm so fucking enjoying this interview. I don't want it to end, but it's got to, because most of my viewers can only last 15 minutes. They're fucking useless. But
That's
yeah,
no,
no.
all of our attention spans are waning.
We
We're
really
all getting waning
appreciate
attention spans.
we really appreciate the last minute jump on though as well, Matt. Like
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
you're creating a platform for people that we might not necessarily get to reach out to. And this industry, the music industry, is it can be pretty cutthroat, right? And it's we appreciate being able to have our voice heard, and people that might be interested being able to then go and hear what our journey is and what our story is. So any platform for us to be able to have a conversation about music, I love it. It's
Again, grassroots sort of institutions like what you guys are doing is fucking cool, because that's essentially how you keep the whole thing alive, is a collection and collaboration of different people who are passionate about art at a, let's call it a maybe amateur or grassroots level. And all the bands that then have become legacy acts today are groups that then they were starting out somewhere, and then there were people around them that were like, oh shit, let's put eyeballs on this, and then eventually you get a corporate thing behind it, and sometimes it becomes more lame then, where it gets too safe. Yeah, there's an example maybe, and then we'll move on from it. But a band like Metallica, they used to sing about social political commentary. They used to have songs about they were anti-death penalty and whatever else, yada yada yada. And then they move into then a more commercial, I guess you could say, minded sphere, and I guess they did start singing about more universal things and being less controversial. I mean, I didn't see the full interview, but I saw a little one where Lars Ulrich was pushing back against Hetfield recently for using the word cancer. He's like, oh, people might be upset by the word cancer, and Hetfield's pushback was, well, it's a powerful word, so I'm going to use it. And I thought, wow, you guys are really, you seem to have boxed yourselves in to then have to have this really, really safe product that then nobody can be upset by it. But again, controversy also can sell.
Anyway. I mean, their song on Garage Days are the Andy Nowhere Lee song. So what? If you
that cover,
if you hear James, but if you hear James, he's like he is trying his hardest to make cunt sound like a normal word, but you can tell that it's like you're saying. Like cunt's not a good word in America. They're like they
no,
the English,
English in Australia,
I
an actual term of endearment here. Yeah,
I was in America a couple of years back, and I didn't know
true.
that. And I was in the hot tub with our drummer JJ. And I turned to this dude, and I was just like, he brought some beers out, and he's like, hey, do you guys want some beers? And I'm like, fuck yeah, you're a fucking sick cunt. Thanks, bro. The turn on his face, the whiplash that he had, he's like, what did you say? And then obviously, got into the conversation. I'm like, oh, this is a term of endearment. Like, we don't mean this in a negative sort of sense. But yeah,
Yeah,
it's a different social, and demographic. I was
Social.
very much taken back. I didn't know.
yeah.
Yeah, was there anything else you want to ask? I guess that's relevant to, I mean, I could talk all day about bullshit with my process and whatnot. Because
I can listen
talking
all
about
day.
myself,
But listen,
people love talking about themselves, right?
yeah, but no, that's good. That's exactly what I want. But let's ask a few questions. Do you do any covers?
Yeah. We'll from here and there we'll do a bunch of Sepultura covers.
Lamb of God,
Yeah.
Dillinger
I mean
Escape
we do
Plan, Faith No
yeah,
More.
yeah. Faith No More.
Oh, really? What song?
We've
Can
done.
I ask what song?
Gentle Art of Making Enemies.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
We have a friend
What
of
a
ours
cover.
that I played with in other bands, like Mick Kaslik, who played in Adrift for Days, and we were in conduction together, which is kind of more groove, thrash, metalcore sort of band. Amazing vocalist. He's got really good Mike Patton type skills. Major influence on him, and excellent front person, an absolute sweetheart. Massive dude. Like he looks like he could just swallow
He's a
anybody
mountain.
in the room. Like he's a mountain, but just absolute sweetheart. Yeah, so we cover that with him sometimes. We also do an arrangement of Dave Brubeck and Duke Ellington. I don't know whether you
Wow.
know those guys, jazz guys.
Yeah, yeah.
Smashed together Take the A
Wow.
Train with Blue a la Ronde la Turque, and we ended up making it very Meshuggah-y. Um, and when we play that one, that's when people often go, "Oh, you guys are influenced by Mr. Bungle and Mike Patton." It's like, yeah, we are
Mm.
definitely.
Which
There's
it'll come out
The guys are like,
soon.
hey,
couple of
his first
couple other
album,
jazz
two
standards I'd
weeks
like
to
to
write.
adapt. Sorry.
Mike Patton, when he did the real thing, that took him 2 weeks to write that whole album. And
Yeah,
it
yeah,
was
yeah.
only like a month after. It was only like a month after Chuck threw the towel in, and he brought that
Yep.
out. And I
Wow.
remember seeing him. I think it was on the Real Thing tour. It was at the Phoenician Club in Sydney, and
Yeah, sick.
like this guy just came up from nowhere, and he was one of the most amazing frontmen I'd ever seen at the
Yeah, yeah,
time.
yeah.
Like
Yep.
they started off with Madonna's Vogue. That was
Yeah,
the
fuck
the
yeah.
actual first that they played, and it was like, oh my god, I am totally in love. Then I got kicked out on the fourth song. I think I fell into a bunch of guys and spilled all their drinks, and the bouncers just
Oh
threw
shit.
me out. I was spewing. It was fucked. But yeah, that was in my younger days,
Sounds
so
wild.
I was allowed to do that. Uh,
Uh, we've also done a
They're a great band, an
couple of
example of
Metallica. Yeah, done
oh,
a couple of Metallica covers back in
oh yeah.
like early days of like Creeping Death, Seek and Destroy. Really just like taking songs that we loved as as kids and young teenagers, and then just getting on stage and being able to play them. So, but it just ranges. I think more in terms of that sort of like regular when we're playing in a set, we'll draw to either Lamb of God or Sepultura, and it's more. It's more for the crowd as well. So rather than us just playing, 35, 40 minutes of our own music, chucking in something that pays homage to what we grew up with, what we love, what people in the crowd are necessarily going to like as well. And,
But
there's any variations.
it is cooler, I think, to do covers that aren't a primary influence, or they might be a primary influence, but they might not sound like you, if that makes sense. So
Mm.
when we get the opportunity to do stuff like covers like by Tomahawk or something like that, or again Faith No More, or we don't sound like that normally, but I don't know, it's just cooler to do a song or a cover or an influence that's not so obvious, and then
Mm.
you have people in the audience potentially go, oh, why would they? Oh, that makes sense now.
Mm.
As opposed to if you cover stuff by bands that you're directly influenced by and they're better than you, yeah. If I'm an audience member, I'll be like, oh wow, you went there. Oh yeah, that is your influence. That's fucking obvious. They're better than you are. Like, yeah.
I really want to see you guys live because when I got your well, a lot of people first before I spoke to you yesterday said T-Rex Rhapsody, blah, blah, blah. Interview them. And like, I got comments on my personal messenger saying, mate, these guys are fucking mad live. They're fun to fucking watch.
Thank you.
And I was like, and I got a bit nervous and shit, which happens a lot. Like, I don't know if you saw the interview I did with Chris Mazurek not long ago. That was probably the most nervous I've been in an interview. And before that was Blackie from the Heartlands. And you guys, like, all these comments that I was getting, I thought, well, fuck, what do I go by the usual questions, or like, what do I ask? Like, everyone's saying these guys are like they're singing a dictionary, more or less. And yeah, I got a bit scared, but yeah, cool. So
Well, I hope you feel relaxed through what, the last, like, 45 minutes has been. Like, for us, it's just like, draw back to earlier in the conversation. It's just a conversation at the end of the day. Ask whatever you want to ask, because
that's
it's it's part of the learning process. No, like, that takes me back a little bit. We've been doing this journey for quite some time, and we started getting a really good, cultivated following just before COVID. We're playing shows, quite regularly, and we're playing at Frankie's, rest in peace, and having, really, really good crowds for that. And then it, come into 2022, it's kind of felt like a reset, once COVID sort of diving down. And Craig, I remember us playing shows with people having to sit in chairs, and it was difficult, because we're a high energy band, we're a high energy group of people that are on stage. And for us, we want to make that show where people are grooving and moving and, having fun, right? That's what music's about. At the end of the day, we play our stuff to get out that energy output. But to get that, what you're saying there, those comments and those direct messages, is it hits me in the heart. It's, we're pushing hard and we're playing a lot. And 2024 was our biggest year. We played I think it was like 25, 30 something shows throughout the year, a lot of back-to-backs. As your producer said, we're playing at Elton Chong's, and we've kind of cultivated a bit of that Western Sydney market. I don't want to say market, but that region. For us, we're obviously Western Sydney boys, so. And a lot of these places they're putting on events are more, were city bound, and it's a hard place to get into. Try and get to Newtown. Sometimes it's difficult because parking's shit, and transport to there's can be shit as well, depending on where you're coming out from. So, places like Camden, ram it down. You got Lance out there from Decimator that's putting on shows, and all ages shows. That's what we want to be a part of. We want to be part of this group, or this area of music where there's no limits, there's no boundaries. I remember as a kid, Craig invited me up on stage for his 18th birthday, and it being one of the best memories of my life as a 14-year-old kid playing on stage. But the thing is that if that didn't happen, 21st, sorry, yeah, it would have been then 16, 21st. Like, exposure to music then was difficult, right? Like, there wasn't a lot of all ages shows that I could go to. I was lucky if Lamb of God played an all ages show at Big Top Luna Park. And so that's the case, right? And then Elton Chong's as well, that, shout out to Aaron, putting on a great venue for bands to be able to play and connect with the groups and those people, and creating friendships, like. And then out in the mountains as well for Craig, out in that area. So sorry, I've gone on a bit of a tangent. It's just nice to be able to hear that the hard work that we've been doing, and the hours spent in practice, the hours spent in performing is having that sort of effect.
Yeah. As you brought it up, how did the lockdown affect you as a band? Like, was it you ring up each member and say, okay, listen to this riff, or like what? How did you
Yeah,
guys
there was a little bit of
keep
that.
the
There
ball
was
rolling?
we'd catch up where we could whenever there was those weeks where things were, not locked down. Um, for me, I was really fortunate because the work that I do is in disability support care. So I still had a social life where I still went to work. I had to go to work. And one of at that time as well, our former lead guitarist, I worked with him. So we were often working together on a Monday and we would be able to go over stuff and then also incorporate it into our work practice where it'd be like, hey guys, come in, let's play this song together. And we play songs with them and teach them music, but at the same time, we're like, all right, you guys want to have a cup of tea? We've got 10 minutes. We don't need to be in your pocket for the next 10 minutes. And we go over a piece of music that was for ourselves. And I guess it was just a lot of filming and sending files back and forth. For me as well was like it wasn't the worst because I'd come home from work and then I'd be like bang just straight into music. And as much as it was a stepping back from then getting out there, I was able to then be inspired and write more stuff and just focus my creativity into old songs and refine them, or new songs, brand new songs, and then present them to the fellas. And then I said it the other week. One of the most satisfying things ever is to have basically almost an entire song completely maybe fleshed out, or even just the skeleton, and then you give it to people, and then very often the case where there's sections of pieces of the music where I would be, oh, this bit sucks, or it's not hitting or landing right, and then someone else comes in and they interpret it and put variations and their own spin on it. It's like, oh, this is my favorite part of the fucking song now. This is excellent. Where before it felt like the weakest part. So it's always really cool to see something where I'll be like, oh, it's a bit, what's going on there? And then someone goes, no, I see value in that. And then they expand it and make it grow. That's always really cool to see. Yeah, I don't know how well I answered your question, but I guess some of us,
No,
we all
good answer.
struggled in our own way, but
Yeah.
I guess channeled all my ill feelings into then just okay, I'm fucking focused on this new rhythm or that new thing or this scale that's inspiring me today. Or I mean, honestly, half the music was originally composed with me and this drummer where he was this Polish guy and he'd walk into the room, he'd look, what song is this? And I'm like, I'm just riffing, man. And then it was just a natural, there was no real like path towards destination. It was just, let's just play music and whatever sounds good, sounds good. And from there, then things became, I guess you could argue, more calculated, or oh, I've got more of a vision for this song, all that, da 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 da. But again, a lot of it was me trying to not suck at an instrument. I was like, oh, I don't know how to finger pick. How do I make this sound good? Oh, now I've got the beginning of a song and then I give it to someone like Ross who actually can finger pick, and then he, expands it, and so yeah,
COVID had
that's
a bit of
that's been half the process.
Awesome.
COVID had a bit of a different effect for me. It was a bit of a roller coaster. It made me set up my own little home studio, which was awesome. So it gave me the ability to go down the pathway of seeing how much I could get onto my computer and be able to practice with that, be able to practice with headphones at 2 o'clock in the morning. But it was tough. Like, Craig was definitely a driving force. There was a lot of things that I was working on and trying to write or try and bring to them what was the band. But it was a lot of shows where we're going to be able to play and then it falling through. And that happened multiple times. And so for myself, I actually was very depressed and put the guitar down, and didn't see light at the end of the tunnel, sort of thing, where it was difficult to necessarily go and want to learn new shit or want to go and practice new shit. And Craig had an abundance of music that was being written and coming out, and so for me it was, when the fuck are we going to get out of this? When the fuck are we going to be able to play? There was never a thought of disbanding. There was never a thought of stopping or anything like that. It was just difficult to pick up and keep playing. But the other
Mm.
side of things is that when we then came out, it was like the moment we could have four people at a house, it was like band practice, let's go. And it was just like a reignition of, let's continue on and let's take the advantage of being able to play any show. So, come out of the first lockdown, and the moment that we were able to play shows, we were on it. When we went into second lockdown, it was a different, sort of like, we're going to keep driving this because there's light at the end of the tunnel. We're going to come out of this. We're going to be able to keep playing. We're going to be able to play shows. And so I think, where there was that ill feeling, or, that depression towards playing and not being able to play, essentially, was that then it was topped over with the fact that there is, we're going to be able to do this again. Draw back to what I said earlier, which was, it sucked. We crafted out, and we had a really solid following that was coming into that, that period of time. It was almost like reset, restart, but then it opened us to new people, and it opened us to people that hadn't heard us before. And, venues obviously got a bit of a shellacking as a result of it, but then there were a lot of other venues that were really happy to, like, let's go, let's have live music. And so it opened us up to new areas, and those new areas were, local to us, and where we wanted to really craft out our sound and, our performances.
So like when lockdown finished, did you like any invitation to play? Did you go, yeah, bang,
Pretty
we'll be
much,
there?
yeah.
Did you
Yeah.
ever do a gig that like you guys shouldn't have been on, kind of thing? As I usually
I
do,
don't
I
think there's
explain it.
any. I wouldn't. I think because we've got such a diverse set, like, one could argue playing up in the mountains, for playing our heavier stuff, maybe, but it's been well received up there as well. So, Craig, you might be able to talk a little bit more on that, but I don't think so. I don't think that there's. I think, it's we have a different opinion of being on bills with people that aren't necessarily metal. I think that when you've got a different assortment of acts where they've got different sounds, rather than it just being like a metalcore, or it just being a thrash, or it just being this, it allows for people to be able to hear different tones to music, and different interpretations to metal. We just played this East Coast prog Odyssey tour. We're on the Sydney leg for Russian Novel, Aurelia, and New Million, band from Perth, a band from Melbourne, and then a band from Newcastle. And it was great because there were different, like, it's prog, and prog's so diverse in terms of what you can come with that. So that was really, really cool to be part of that tour yesterday.
I think they were essentially your more progressive metalcore or hardcore
Yeah.
tradition. I'm guessing that seemed to be more their frame of reference that most of those bands. I always prefer playing some sort of mixed bill. I mean, it's good to have some sort of theme where everything links together. Of okay, these guys are playing with maybe that theme of lightness or darkness or riffs, but as Ross was saying, playing a bill where every band is the exact same sub genre can be a great way to just bore the shit out of the audience.
Yeah,
Because
but
I mean,
have you played a gig in an outback town to a bunch of cowboys, kind of thing, like, and then
oh
they're,
yeah,
oh,
I'd love to. I'd love to.
That's
Because
the
I mean, I get a kick out of sometimes it's fun to sometimes see people's faces where they go, "What the fuck is this? Is this
yeah.
music?" Yeah, yeah, yeah. This is music. You don't have to enjoy
Love.
it. I mean, if we were playing out there as well, then I'd be like, "Hey, can we do some Johnny Cash?" And
Yeah, fucking oath.
because that shit's metal.
As
Or
a
can be.
as a little comment to
yeah,
that, we
yeah.
we're actually looking to do more regional. Craig has been pushing for it for the longest time, for us to go and play regional shows. We really, really want to get out to, Dubbo and Broken Hill, and be able to bring music to these regional locations. A loose plan, or at least bringing it to the guys once we've got crafted out when we release our album, and then go and do a tour off that, would be to be able to hit these regional locations. Comment that was said to me yesterday with New Million when I was talking to them. was saying that the regional locations down in Melbourne or regional locations down in Victoria are really, really great for that. And they're starving for it. And, we want to bring that to those places. I want to play in Perth. I want to play in South Australia. I want to play in Cairns up in Queensland. I want to just bring music to anyone that wants to listen at the end of the day, rather than just honing into Sydney or Melbourne or Queensland.
Yeah.
Hit these places that are starved for music. Whether or not 100 people come out or 10 people come out, as our job. And I've always said to the boys when we've played any show, we've always had this unanimous thought process is, as long as we connect with one person at that show and we bring on one new person, and that's the goal every time. It's just one new person. If we connect with one, then we've done our job. And yesterday was a testament to that. We got a really good response from everyone that was in the crowd, but we had one individual that came up, and we hit what was their heritage, and we hit what was their their hometown. And that's getting the response from that, and having them come up and then purchase merch and talk to us afterwards, and dance into our music. It's like perfect. We've done our job. We've hit that one person.
Yeah. Excellent. So, where are you going to do your? Hopefully, this will be out by then. Where are you going to do the album launch?
That's to be decided.
That's to be decided. We're in the final leg of our release. So we've got a 14-track album that's going to come out. Some of the songs that we've already got out on Spotify are being remixed, remastered. So then that way we've got a more coherent sound towards what that album and what the vision for that is. I've laid down just recently last vocals for the final track on the album. Craig's got a bit of work that he needs to do. It's not all too much, but then a listening party, making sure that everything lines up the way that we want it to be, and then we'll craft out the release for that, and then see what timing we're able to do, and be able to then hit the East Coast, be able to hit down to where people will allow us to play. Obviously, life is a big thing that comes in and takes a lot of our time, so it's going to be a case of when are we able to, what are we able to, and try and craft it out like that. So to be decided. Maybe we do it in Sydney as a launch off, and find somewhere that's what's been good to us as well. But yeah,
I feel a loyalty and a sentimentality towards Elton Strong's, because they've been so good to us. But
that's where my mind goes.
We'll go with whatever the logistics. I mean, there's a romantic way to view stuff and go, oh, you got to do it here and then there. Like, whatever works, we'll make it work. We probably will, but hopefully we'll make less of the same mistakes we made in the past, which was I'd sometimes push to be like, we need to release this, we need music, and then we just put it out there, and you're not being the smartest in increasing eyeballs or engagement, or creating a narrative for reasons for people to view your art and listen to it, to want to, where it's just like, oh, here it is. All right, do you like it? Yeah, 5 people.
Yeah. Those mistakes sometimes turn out to be the best
sure.
idea. And like as you brought up the Dead Kennedys, like a lot of their songs had different lyrics before they came out, and you know what I mean. And, Even like Holiday in Cambodia was written 3 or 4 fucking times. You know what I mean? It was yep. I fucked up there, but I'll just change that a little bit, and oh my god, here it goes, and then
now it lands. Yep.
Yeah.
That's the thing with I mean, a lot of art, at least that I think is often more interesting is I know there was a great quote by David Bowie however long ago. It was interviewed a long time ago, but I saw it a couple of years ago, and then I saw it again more recently, where he's saying that when you've got an artist and if they're treading water, if they're just outside of where they can actually stand, and they're just, that's when the art gets really interesting, where you're just outside your comfort zone, and you're getting a bit, well, whoa, what will I try here? What's that over there? Because then the artist is hopefully then really, really inspired, and then they touch on something that's interesting for an audience, not just the artist. I think that's important. I forget where I was going to go with all of this. But I guess it's just
Not
you
to
can have
learn from your
pie in the
mistakes.
sky visions of what you want to do, and then there's logistical realities as well. But I guess what I was going to say, a lot of art is, or a lot of what I'm doing is me throwing shit on the wall and seeing what sticks. And the amount of times as well where I've come to the guys, I'm like, I've got this idea, and they look at me and they go, "Hey, how does this work?" And I'm like, "We're going to figure it out." But I swear, I don't know. There's been less so now, but in the past there'd be a couple of times where I'd have an idea for something, and Ross would be at times the
Resistant.
more skeptical. Skeptical.
Yeah.
I won't say cynical, but skeptical. And then it'd happen, and he'd go, "Oh, that actually worked." I'm like, "I fucking knew it might work. Didn't know it would work, but I knew it might fucking work."
But
And
it's what you
it's
know.
nice when you land it.
Yeah, it's what you know. And like I've never had not had any confidence in what Craig's brought. It's always just been a case of like, how are we going to work this? How are we going to craft this? And it's like what you're saying before, some of the best things come out of that. One of my favorite, well, two of my favorite songs now to perform. Not going to be on this release that's coming out yet, but Follow the Elamites and Laz Gypsy. I remember when they were first brought to me, I just looked at it and went, what? And then Craig had a whole bunch of bass that he'd written, gave it to me, and we got into the jam room, and I just did not listen to anything that he'd provided to me and went, this is what I'm going to go with, and craft it out. And now it's a case of like, we're going to go back and look at some of those rhythms that he did write, and then incorporate that in with what I've written. But that's the flexibility where it's been, I've got this thing, I want you to play it like this, but then get into the room and then go, I'm gonna feel out what I'm hearing, and I'm gonna feel out and not pigeonhole myself into what's been written, where I'm gonna then just play what that is and try and come up with some some polyrhythms to do with it, and then drawing from my influences of Tool on bass and writing out those things, and then it's this really beautiful push and pull. And then it landing, and then coming to this point and us looking at it and going, this is cool. All right, what else can we add to it? What else can we pull from? And then Craig kindly suggesting I go look at the Guitar Pro stuff for what he's previously written, and then going, all right, this is cool. We're going to add this into it, or we're going to do this. And I have this tendency to want to be loud and big, and there's this beautiful element of being soft and drawing back. So it's cool because there's then this push and pull of like, well, we can put this here and we can do this there, and we can put the overdrive in this moment here, but then pull away from it and go back to that nice pulled back ambient sort of approach. So yeah, writing, one of my favorite things, and it's like I've said it years ago, but it's it's awesome to be able to be in a room and write with my brother. It's awesome to be in a room, with your loved ones and being able to craft out. Sorry to get sentimental, Craig, but it's there's a photo of us, when I was like 6 or 7 years old on his bed, and us jamming out Rage Against the Machine. And now it's a case of just like taking a video and writing it and then sending it to Craig, and then Craig sending something back to me. And the world of technology has its advantages of us not having to be in a room, but then when we get in a room, we've got a foundation of something to be able to then just jam and get in the room and just play, and then craft out something from that.
So you guys talked about movies a lot at the beginning and everything like that. If you had the opportunity to do the score for a movie, what would be the genre of the movie that you guys would like?
Craig's fortunately, actually, and I don't know if he was about to say it, but he's done some scoring actually for some local like short films and movies before. So I'll let Craig answer that, and then I'll
Yeah,
say
that was an absolute D grade action type
horror.
horror there was an action thriller sort of thing. That was one of those ones for Vengeance. That was a lot of fun. But yeah, dude, if I could do the next June soundtrack, that'd be fucking mint.
Oh yes.
Yeah, something like that. Where again I can play with those sort of Middle Eastern vibes and get really ambient, but also whether it's heavy ambience or dark ambience or light ambience, stuff like that. That's a lot of fun. And then you could
That
play around with your
question
space
has
opera sort of
finally
things.
come to fruition. That question's finally come to fruition. I've asked that so many times, and people are,
You haven't never gotten
that's
a
fucking
full answer for it. I'd I'd say like
everyone
Christopher
says
Nolan.
horror. Everyone says horror.
I'd love to do
Oh,
for a horror track or like Christopher Nolan. Like those films. But then also like with A24 coming out with the movies that they do, like there's so many wacky movies that you could write wacky music for, like draw back to like Mike Patton and the stuff that he's done. I'm blanking on the album that he did. I think it was for a movie,
Frank,
but yeah, like that
Frank,
would be
Frank 2. He did the second soundtrack for that.
that'd
Amazing.
be that'd be awesome. Peeping
I
Tom,
think
that
Trent
album,
Reznor.
like I fucking love that album. It's just wacky and just like so that'd be cool. That'd be
Yeah,
really cool.
I
I
was
think
just gifted.
Trent Reznor's done many, hasn't he? Trent Reznor. I did
I think so.
seven.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
Nine Inch
He,
Yep,
Nails.
yep.
yeah,
Fucking oath.
9 Inch Nails. And he's done
The Nick,
so
the
many,
Nick
and
Cave
it's like,
soundtracks with Warren Ellis are quite beautiful too. Some of the soundtracks he's done for
oh my
some
God,
movies.
The Proposition. The Proposition is probably one
Yeah,
of the most amazing soundtracks. I've got it on CD. I've got it on tape.
nice, nice.
This has been one of the best. Sorry for the last 75 guys. You're amazing, but this has been one of the best interviews I've done.
I appreciate that, Matt.
And
It's testament to you and the questions that you ask, So again, we, on behalf of the band, we really appreciate the platform to be able to have a conversation. Creates noise and it just allows for that online presence and being able to then step out to the wider audience and the wider market. A lot of bands, people, they want to hear this stuff, whether they are or aren't interested in. There's things that they can pull from it, and it gives us a voice to be able to talk about what we're about and what we do, and maybe someone out there hears it and they go, fuck yeah, I want to check out T-Rex Autopsy.
yeah,
We
so if I organise a gig down here in Wollongong,
I would
you
love
guys
that.
be up for it?
Yeah,
That'd be great.
got a lot of Wollongong friends. I actually, my best mate lives down in Wollongong in Albion Park, and I got a lot of friends out that way. So they're always calling for us to come down and play. And we've played a couple of times. We've played down in Wollongong, the tennis club, and then we've played in Dapto, not Dapto,
Diamond Dog.
Shed. No, we were supposed to play at Diamond Dogs, but it ended up being changed to that little shack.
Yeah.
I'm blanking on the name of the venue. But that was fun. That was a lot of fun. I do want to play at Diamond Dogs though. Shout out Russian Novel, Aurelia, and also New Million and Shanagra are playing at Diamond Dogs tonight. So that'll be a fucking awesome show. If you're free, Matt, you should definitely get down there and watch
I
it.
think I might.
It'll be that last night was awesome. And Shanagra, they've got weird ass fucking outfits and an awesome young bunch of blokes, but great sound. So that'll be a lot of fun. But we want to play down Westmore.
Because I'd love to get you on the bill with None for One. I don't know if you've ever heard of them.
I have. Yeah, no. Yeah, I have. Yeah, that'll be awesome.
But like heavy, like metal with a didgeridoo is
it's
the
mad.
fucking best.
Like it's just for us, like calls to the I don't want to say wacky instruments, but it's non-commercial instruments, right? Like
Exactly.
it's music, and like when I think about pop, especially, it's so much of just the same shit just being regurgitated. And it's not for us. It's not that one trick pony of like bringing in these instruments to just bring people in, but it's Craig's gone and learnt this stuff and is studying a lot of this. And then he's had that major influence on myself to then go and, learn the mandolin. And we're going to craft out for me to go learn the glissentar, for him to go play the oud. So then we can then bring these elements of creativity to light. It's
It's
music's
very
such a
Sepultura.
love
Like
Sepultura.
Sepultura,
Like, like
they use their indigenous instruments
they
in
do
a lot of
that.
their
That
music.
Brazilian, that Brazilian percussion. I remember like hearing the drum, da, 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 dum, jumping in the chaos AD. It's like
Yeah,
it's just there's so much. There's just so much like sound that just comes from it, and it's yeah, like Cavalier Conspiracy obviously just played on Friday, and like I went and
yeah.
saw
I
them.
watched a bit of it on YouTube yesterday.
Yeah. I
Mm.
caught them back in like 2016, and it was just full circle moment for myself where it was just like this is amazing. I remember watching the metal documentary came out, like I think it was like 2002. And then the second one to that, it was a Headbanger's Journey. And then afterwards was World Metal, I think it was from memory. And when listening to that and watching those interviews and them going through all the different pieces, and then when they talked about Sepultura and then bringing in Max and that like talking about the Brazilian approach, like it was just such an influence for myself as well.
Mm. What do you think of Parkway Drive? I just
I
like
love Parkway Drive. It's it's interesting you mentioned that, because I was having a conversation the other day just about like Australian music and Australian metal. First and foremost, so beautiful to see that they did this sold out tour in Australia and played at Kudos Bank Arena. I think it was remarkable to think that like a band like Parkway Drive that's been going for 20 years. I remember being in the car with my mum as a kid, and Craig was 18 years old, and picking him up from like some dive bar in Sydney, and him going and watching them. A small little band that comes out of Byron Bay to be an international success is phenomenal.
mm,
It's tough. We live in such a congested sort of market when it comes to music, that and then the accessibility for it, like you draw back to the people's attention spans are very short. So albums are tough. Like it's why I'm on a vinyl collection run. It was Dark Side of the Moon. Like I used to listen to albums, but I always, because I grew up less on I listened to CDs, but I grew up on MP3s and collection of music, and then listening to music on my computer like that as well. That I shied away from that album experience, when now I'm more so trying to hone in and listen to full albums. Listening to Dark Side of the Moon for the first time, it was about 7 years ago, but I remember that out of bodily experience, like it's entrenched in me, where I went, holy shit! It was the Great Gig in the Sky. I listened to Great Gig in the Sky
yeah.
and hearing the female vocals, and hearing that it had led off a previous track from the piano introduction and then into the vocal melody, and then it leading into then obviously I think it's Money that comes straight after that. But uh, a lot of people will shoot me for this, but there was a period of time where I said to my brother, I was like, Money is the most commercial, like one of the most commercially successful tracks, and I'm over it. I remember I was over it. I'd heard it too much, and then I
Yeah,
chucked it into the
I'm with
context.
you.
I chucked it into the context of the album, and I went, "This is one of the greatest fucking tracks that's ever come out." And then I went down. I was getting guitar lessons, and I was wanting to learn a lot of funk, and I was wanting to learn like a lot more like on in that sort of like realm. And I got put onto some Pink Floyd tracks for it, and so was learning how to solo when our previous lead guitarist had left. Then I took over the reins of learning how to play lead, and I was listening to a lot of David Gilmour because it's just beautiful. Yeah, he's one of my all-time favorite guitarists. And I'd heard an extract from Shine On You Crazy Diamond, but I hadn't listened to the Wish You Were Here album.
Ah,
And
okay.
I'd listened to obviously Have a Cigar, love that song, had listened to, Wish You Were Here, but I hadn't listened to the album in full. Heard this extract from Shine On You Crazy Diamond, part 1 to 5, and then went, I've got to go listen to this song. And I went and listened to the full 23 minutes of the, part
Yeah,
1 through to 9, and went,
yeah,
holy shit, I've slept on this. And then went and listened to the album, went, holy shit, like albums back in the 70s, 1975, that album came out. And it was one of the first vinyls that I went and bought because I was like, I got to go listen to this. Went and purchased the remastered remixing, or sorry, the original mastering and mixing from tapes on vinyl, and went, this is different to the Spotify commercial release. What these solos from David Gilmour are slightly different. Since obviously gone and learnt the song, so like knowing it piece for piece, but going like, this is crazy. So I'm on that album hunt. Draw back to Parkway Drive and the success of them. I just, it's so great to have Australian metal be pushing. We played with King Parrot on New Year's Eve, which
wow,
was fucking awesome. They've got their new album coming out, and I was saying to Youngie when we were in the green room, congratulations, you guys are going to Europe to play with Pantera. This is fucking awesome. Like, you're bringing light to the wider audience of out of us, out of our continent, for Australian music and what we have here. And I think we're a little bit hindered by where we're landlocked in, and drawing off what that conversation that was about Parkway Drive, where it's like, we travel an hour, or you travel 2 hours, you get to Newcastle, right? Or you travel an hour and a half, an hour, you get to Wollongong. It's not like the States. It's not like Europe, where you travel 2 hours and you're in a completely different, I don't want to say suburb, but a different region where there's a different market and there's different people, and they're wanting to have that musical experience. We've a lot of what happens in Australia, there's just been a lot of high-rise buildings that stopped us from having venues to allow us to be able to then play. But I think Australia in its infancy is pushing more for that. We had such a big hard rock. Obviously, this talks more to your era, where there were the Angels, and and people like going to the pub and playing and listening. But I feel as though that it's drawing upwards. There's things that are being put in place. There are people out there that are really pushing for that live music, and really pushing for bands to be able to have a platform for everyone to be able to play, and people and crowds to come out and listen to good music, or a platform for people to be able to craft out and allow themselves to be able to practice. Gigging is so different than playing in your garage. Garage, there's no stress, there's no worry, there's no something goes wrong, you can fix it, you can start again. Getting on stage is a different beast in its own. That's where the nerves come in. Less so now, I think. With the longevity of playing shows, it's like, it's fun, being able to get that crowd response, or getting that, you make a mistake and you have a laugh and you go, oh, well, fuck that up, keep going. And, it becomes part of the show. And then people get to see that sort of natural response of, like, laughter and love for it.
yeah, 100%, 100%. Talking, I'm just trying to work it out. Here we go. With the album coming out, are there songs that had to be removed? Are there songs that had to be replaced? Or are you happy with the whole thing?
So we it's been a really, really long process for this album. We started releasing tracks. What was our first release? It would have been Heavy Metal Awesome Sandwich, and that was back in 2022. So it's been a long time to release this, and we started production on our second album. So we'd pretty much finished the first like this album that's to be released, but there was a conversation where there was going to be 17 songs on this album. Yeah, and that's not including some like interlude. Like if we put all our like interlude tracks and like stuff that Craig's put together for, you know, talking, you know, maybe they're like a minute or 2 minutes, and it's a reprisal of parts of the songs, and then a discussion point on it. If you see the releases on our Spotify, there's, you know, Sevis, which leads into the Road to Serfdom, and then there's OSB, which is Operation Sovereign Bollocks, which is an outtake after Refugee. So if we had added all of them, it would have been like something like 2022, and well over an hour of music. But when we were looking at the track listing, it was a case of what needs to be on this, what do we want to have on this, and then the starting of the second album allowed us to then go, well, hold on a second, maybe we take a couple of these tracks. One of them, Turkey Train, which is that jazz piece that we were talking about earlier, that's crafted in itself, pushing that onto then the second album. Just because it made more sense with what's being crafted out for that release. So it wasn't a case of necessarily dropping tracks. It was more about replacing them for the, you know, the composition of what's being released on this record to then what's then going to be released onto then the second record. It just made more sense. I think 14 songs is a pretty big album in itself. Well, I'm looking at trying to maybe get it pressed on vinyl, because there was a couple of calls for that from shows that we've been done. So that's going to be a little bit of a costly feat when you're getting pressed for that, because it's probably going to have to be 3 or 4 sides. But yeah, we're fortunate that we've got so much music to be able to pick and choose from. So it was more so than just making sure that the vision of this album stayed true for what it was, and allow it to be a composition of music that made sense, but also gave us all of the different avenues of what we're inspired by, and what we're trying to, you know, push out.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's great.
So,
and that's really, as you brought up, that's really Pink Floyd.
yeah,
As,
yeah,
you know,
you
like
look at
yeah,
those
I
two
think,
tracks.
yeah, and a lot of their music. My favorite Pink Floyd song is "Not Now, John." I don't know if you've ever heard it.
Yeah, no, I know.
Yeah,
Yep.
it's brilliant, mate. It's where, I don't even think there was a question in that. But anyway, yeah. I'm sorry, I'm just blown away by the amazing fucking conversation we're having here. It's just like the questions are just blown out of my head. But
Appreciate it, man.
are
Appreciate your time.
Appreciate the input that you've put in this, man. It's been fucking fantastic. Are you're touring on the album, obviously?
Yep. So
Queensland.
yeah, so we'll look at so Elementary at the moment. We've got discussions of going up to Queensland again. So we'll look at probably doing, I guess the idea would be to hit, you know, an area and stay there for that weekend. So probably go like a weekend to weekend sort of approach. You know, hit 3 locations in that Brisbane region. So, you know, go Gold Coast, go Brisbane, go Sunshine Coast again. I would like to hit regional areas and just work down it. So, you know, 1 week up, 1 weekend up there, 1 weekend maybe just traveling around regional parts of Sydney or New South Wales. So, you know, maybe go to Dubbo, maybe go to Broken Hill, and then try and find somewhere along that sort of like area as well. Then obviously do Sydney. We'll probably launch it in Sydney. Like I think, you know, that discussion point on Elton Chong's would be probably the place that we'd want to launch it and have our launch party, and get all our friends that, you know, have given us the opportunity. You know, we've been very fortunate that we've had a lot of people in our camp. Most notably, Jess Ashton, who's our photographer, our band photographer. She's just gone leaps and bounds with with where she's come from and what she's doing, and being able to capture, you know, who we are as artists, and have those visualizations. So anyone looking for a photographer, capture the sound photography, Jess, she's a really, really lovely person. She saw us perform in Campbelltown at Campbelltown RSL from I was going to say an event called Resurgence, which had the Resurgence band, Gerard from World Music out in Campbelltown. Great dudes. So check them out. They've got a great set of guitars and basses, and just really, really lovely people that are really connected to the community in the area there. And so we performed there, and she approached us and asked if she could photograph us. We sat down, had a conversation, and we're like, yeah, you know, she wanted to be able to perfect her craft in photography, and has just been entrenched with the band. She just does so much for us. Like, we're so lucky, from merch to ideas to, you know, pack up. Like last night we had a really, really quick changeover, and she's just like guitar cases and our equipment boxes, and just getting everything. Like, it just makes our life so much easier. Organization from like sets to then printing them out and making sure our stage plots are given to, you know, the right people. It makes our life so much easier, especially when we're constantly playing shows. You know, it's not that it's stressful, but when you have more working pieces to the band, it makes life a lot easier for us to then just be able to just focus on the music. Being that high energy I get out of a show, and it's not that I don't want to talk to people, but I'm exhausted. I need a moment, you know. I want to go outside and, you know, have a beer really quickly and that. But then, you know, you finish the show, and, you know, people are lining up to buy merch, and it's like you're trying to gather yourself, you know, after that, or like make sure that your gear's getting back into a space that's secure, so that nothing goes wrong with it, etc. Let alone getting it out of the place, so then it's not taking up space as well. But she just straight onto it. You know, here's the merch, and here's, you know, everything for that. She flew up to Queensland, you know, for us to be part of that. She did not want to miss that. She's just, yeah, a breath of fresh air, and just a lovely, lovely person. But then that follows on to, you know, KJ from Firefly, giving us a lot to be able to go out. If you haven't interviewed him, or Firefly, they're a great bunch of guys, and they've got some new music coming out as well, from what my understanding is. So that'd be a great conversation point. They're local to us as well. You know, then Costa, who's been producing us, he's an acrolysis and Reva. They've given us a platform to be able to play. Adrian as well. Shout out to Gavin there. You know, there's a lot of these bands that have just given us a place to be able to perform, and really hone in on our craft and our performance. And yeah, it's a community, and it's really, really lovely when that community is pushing each other. Virescent up in Newcastle, now Russian Novel as well, where we've played those couple of sets of shows. And, you know, it's just, if you don't have these people, it's hard. You know, it's a hard place. You're offering us a show down in Wollongong. You know, it's part of that connection building to be able to then have that opportunity. So yeah, if we would love to then, when we do this release and do this album launch, be able to ask these people that have been part of the our camp to then, you know, be on that with us as part of it, because it's paying back that homage.
Yep.
But yeah,
Okay.
then want to get down to Melbourne, and I'd want to get to South Australia as well. So
Definitely. Well, while I get rid of some vodka, I've got to go to the toilet really badly. So just have a talk about what is T-Rex rep autopsy all about? Just have a little spiel while I have a big.
You go for it, man. So T-Rex autopsy, obviously, you know, drawing back on just some points that were from before, is really just the cultivation of everything that's been an inspiration for the band. you know, we've got so many different genres that we love, and music's a space of creativity where you don't you don't have to be, you know, held to a certain area. Being able to listen to these traditional pieces, you know, there's times where I'm on Instagram and I'm hearing like old rhythms, and you know, you're listening to different types of instruments. I don't know why this comes to mind, but The Witcher, like one of the songs in The Witcher, just absolute banger. But music is a spot for creativity, and being able to take your, whether you've had a loss in your family, or you know, you've had someone that's, you know, you've been in a relationship with, or there's something that's happening in society, to be able to then, you know, take that. And you know, I listen to a lot of instrumental bands as well. So I remember like growing up, whenever I was frustrated or I was you know, upset, you pick up the guitar and then you just write something, and it comes from, you know, a place where you can have that melodramatic sort of effect in what you're playing, or it's a set of ambience that's a part of it. So it's great to be able to then take that, put it into the music, and then allow it to then flourish for what it is. The performance side of things is just, I'm a high energy bunny. I've got rechargeable batteries that are just going, 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 going. So I think that's where, you know, I output all of it. And going back to the point of like not necessarily wanting to speak to anyone after a performance, I always will. If anyone comes up to me, I'm always going to talk to those that have been there, part of what it is. But the performance is about, you know, giving everything. You know, I'm going to give you every bit of energy that I have. I'm going to give you every bit of performance, and that follows through for everyone, from JJ on the drums to Matt Thorogood on guitar and bass, and then Craig on whatever collection of instruments he's playing for that set. It's about the performance, and it's about putting on a show. And I think that's where, you know, drawing from those performances that I've seen from, you know, like live performance, it was Dillinger Escape Plan, you know, they're fucking running around and running rampant on stage and pulling down speakers, and to then that theater side where, you know, you're watching someone, you know, creatively, you know, dance or sing or, you know, tell a story. That's yeah, I think that's a summarization of what we're about. So
Yeah, yeah. So I haven't heard of this stuff, but like Metallica, do you incorporate classical music
yeah,
in your thing? Yeah,
yeah. So
I
a
think
lot of
that's a
like,
lot to do with metal.
yeah, yeah. Classical's so heavy, you know, like you go listen to any classical piece, and you know, it's so metal. Like, yeah, I'm sitting there headbanging. I went with Cirque du Soleil a couple of times, but I went and watched it in Vegas, and I remember just sitting there and just being like, this is so fucking heavy. Like this rhythm and the chords and the production. I was just like, you know, headbanging whilst I'm watching Circus Delay. You know, so I
Mm.
think there's a lot of call for a lot of this classical music, and that's why we then incorporate a lot of the strings and these other elements of instruments, because you can like, I remember Craig and I were having a discussion the other day, and we were talking about, you know, how something can be so heavy when it's not actually has that overdrive or distortion, and yeah, so it's, yeah, incorporating that into the music where we can, you know, when it makes sense and when it's right, you know. Craig's he's definitely a person of, he hears something and he tries it, you know. As you said before, he tries to see if it sticks, and it's like 90% of the time it does. Sometimes it just needs a little bit of a rejig to be able to then allow it to hit what it needs to hit at that time, which is what's great about this collaboration and this group. And you got JJ going out and learning jazz and learning, you know, like traditional beats, and us listening to, you know, bands down in Melbourne, Glass Beams, you know, like they're so heavy sometimes. They're not like with the distortion, they don't have anything like that. But then you go listen to it and it's got this vibe and it's got this movement. And you've got these old traditional like beats that you can listen to, and then you can craft out and create a rhythm that goes with it on top of it that allows you to then have something that's entirely different.
Yeah. I've got to say, I have been so enthralled in this interview. I roll 6 cigarettes for each interview, and I've just realised I haven't had one the whole fucking time. And this is my first cigarette. And my God, fucking
I
interesting,
appreciate that,
man.
Matt, man.
I saw my wife roll, smoke a cigarette, and I thought, oh my God, I haven't had one until the last hour. You, I'm speechless, man. This has
Well,
probably been the most oh fuck, it's just really got me thinking about a lot of things that it's just you got to write a book, man. Like you've got so much you've got so much shit to say that it's fucking amazing. Yeah, I'm blown
thanks,
away.
man. Well, you've asked great
Thank you so
questions,
much.
dude. I apologize for the tangents. Craig and I are notorious for
Oh,
getting asked something and then just taking over and talking. But like it's music, man. Like it's fun. And invokes so much emotion. We connect with it. It's like, you know, how many friendships that I've made or connections with individuals just based on music alone, whether it's because of the listening,
yeah.
it's the connecting drive. Like one of my favorite things to ever do is be in a car and introduce new music to friends. Something that
Fucking
you know
fantastic. Yes.
it's and then seeing it like invoke when it comes to like that Spotify Wrapped, and then it's like you made my top band be like this one from something that was like, you know I remember I went to Bring Me the Horizon. I'll just say I'm not a Bring Me the Horizon fan. Fucking one of the best performances I have ever seen. It was awesome. It was such a good show. Like, and that's what's awesome, right? Like I went to that show because of the bands that were playing prior, and one of them being Sleep
Yep,
Token.
yep, yep.
And one of my close mates ended up coming up with me, and yeah, we were dancing and we were having a great time, and my partner was there, and my friends that we go to regular gigs were there as well. And we were just on such a high afterwards. We were like, that was such a good performance. I was like, I knew so many more songs that I didn't know. Like I knew like, three-quarters of the playlist that was there. And so we're in the car and we're on the way back, and my mate's like, you put me on to Sleep Token, and like they were my number one played band for the year, and I love them. And I was like, that's awesome, man. Like that's so good. And then I've gone, I've got to show you this band. And it was called Leprous, and another band, Richelieu, down that, obviously, that real prog route. And so our trip home from Kudos Bank Arena, and then it rolled into this year, and he's like, "Fuck you, Ross. That's 3 years in a row because my number one played band was Leprous for the year." And I was like, "All right, we're gonna try and bank this up for year 4 now." And then start of the year, he sends me a message. It was actually yesterday. He's like, "Did you put me onto Richelieu?" And I was like, "Yeah, the same time that I put you on the Leprous." And he's like, "Fuck you, man. That's another great band that I'm listening to." And it's like, perfect. It's that connectivity. Like music invokes this emotion. And, I listen to so much music throughout the day. It's like my partner, on a Saturday and a Sunday, I have this. Whenever I start the morning, I go get a record out and I go put it onto my record player and I go sit down with my coffee and I go listen to an album in full. And that's how I start my weekends. And I
Right.
sometimes, if it's not that, I'm putting music up on our sound bar in the living room, and then I start cleaning or doing whatever it is. And my partner the other week goes, "Babe, we've had a big week. Can we just not?" And I'm like, "Oh, no, no, no. This is how it's gonna be." Like, and she's like, "Okay, no worries." It's just music's playing all the time. It's just actively listening or passively
Yeah.
listening. It's just part of it.
And it's so great. Like as you were just saying, like I've been to see like bands that I know, and there's been support bands and that I've just gone, my God, you guys just kicked it out of the ballpark. At the end of the night, I'm thinking
Mm.
like, I'm, I'm sorry, but the headliner fucking had nothing on you.
That
You
happened to me
guys
with
are
Disturbed.
just my band of the week.
Yeah, that happened to me with Disturbed. I went to watch them, and Melbourne band 12 Foot Ninja opened for them. And they're one of my all-time favorite bands. I'm so upset that they're on a hiatus at the moment with Kin leaving the band. But yeah, they opened for Disturbed. I think it was back in like 2016 or 2017 at the Horton Pavilion. And I remember walking in and they were playing Deluge, and it was just drums and bass, and it invoked such a bodily experience as well as an emotional experience. The bass and the drums, just I had my hairs on my arm just standing up, and I was like, wow, this is awesome. Like that, yeah. I always draw back to that feeling of what I had in that moment. And they stole the show for me. And then I was in the pit. They finished the show, and I bought tickets to their Manning Bar show immediately. And went and watched them play with then Troll Hogan, and that was then another band that I discovered as a result of it. And
Yeah,
so I've come out with this perspective. I was a little bit more closed off, I'll say, with sometimes the support acts. For me now to be like, I want to go and watch every show and see every single that's been put on that bill, or I'll actively try and find out what are the supporting acts for a band that I'm wanting to go and see, and then I'll go check them out on Spotify. But not allowing for Spotify to be the reason that I don't then go and listen to them, because sometimes, and this is the thing, when I first listened to 12 Foot on Spotify, the production of that album wasn't, like it's good, but the production of that album didn't actually give me what was then the feeling of what I had when I went and saw them live, because then that blew me out. And then now I don't have an issue with the production of what that album is, but you know I listen to it and it still invokes that same emotional response that I had when I was there for then that live show. I think
yeah,
it's just, it draws off like we were talking on that basis of like Pink Floyd and albums. We live in a world now where music is so accessible that we don't always listen to the craft of what is the music ensemble of what that is. We then jump from track to track, and like that gives us an opportunity to be able to discover new bands, which is fantastic. But I think now more so than ever, I'm more open to allowing for tracks to then give me the opportunity to go and listen to an album in full, because I want to go and hear what is the vision of what that band is, rather than just a few singles that have been released.
yeah, yeah.
Collaboration though, it's
Hey,
awesome. You look at someone like Electric Callboy, and they did a collaboration with Baby Metal. Awesome fucking track. Love it. It's in my rotation of listening. I go listen to Knock Loose, and they did a track with Poppy. Fucking love it. Great release for them, the album that came out, and then Bad Omens with them Poppy again. Fantastic.
you got the opportunity, right, to put on a 5 band gig.
5 band.
Who would that 5 band gig? Who would those 5 bands be?
Well, Opeth has to be the headline for me. Oh shit, man, you're putting me on the spot here. Opeth, Lapras, just because of their recent performance that I had for them was phenomenal. 12 Foot Ninja, because I'd want them to come back and play again. I'd need Mike Patton in some form of sense, whether it's Mr. Bungle or Faith No More. And then if I could resurrect and have everyone alive, I would want that Pantera original lineup. That 5 listing would probably change, but I would definitely say Opeth as my number one, because they're my number one all-time band. So
First time that a band has never put themselves on the list.
oh well, I love my band, but I'm always listening. So I'll chuck us in at number 6 then. Thank you
Thank
very
you
much
so
for your
much,
time,
Rob.
guys.
It's been so fucking great.